Good morning, Elvis, to you and the listeners of SAFM.
Mr. Blows, what is the primary motivation behind the EFF's proposal to automatically register South African citizens and voters at the age 16 using the National Population Register?
I mean, look, Elvis, I think at the basic of it all is that we've got a population of close to 14 million people, about 13.5 million South African citizens who are eligible to be on the voters' roll and to vote who are not on the register. Now, we are saying that the IEC should take a proactive approach. You know, if we could call it a rather an opt-out narrative rather than opt-in, which then means that people must then be automatically put into the voters' roll, and then those who do not want can then deregister themselves rather than relying on people to go and register themselves to vote. Because what the IEC does not tell us at each and every election, as you call it, the voter apathy continues to be on the rise and people don't show up to vote, that the IEC is unable to tell us that how many people actually do show up at voting stations and then attend away because of non-registration. And that is not really because we blame our own people. It's mainly because the IEC role in their own, advertisement and then telling our people how to get registered and also the role that we as political parties play. So we are just saying that our people must then be put on the voters' roll, and then when they show up during voting day, some people, a lot of our people do go to voting stations, and then they find that they are not registered simply because they were unaware of the voter registration date, or they simply didn't know that they needed to register before they go to vote.
Now, since the voting age in South Africa remains 18, how does the EFF justify registering citizens at age 16?
Yeah, look, so when you turn 16, it doesn't mean that at the time you're turning 16, it would be the year of voting. So someone can turn 16 now, but you know that in the next local government election, they will be eligible to vote. So it's always better to early register our people so that those who come of age when the election year arises are already on the voting roll. And then you don't have a backlog of people that on the year of the registration, now you've got these huge numbers that you need to register. So if you start them at 16 years old, then you know that those who turn 16 on the year of voting, it's just not going to be a huge number that then you need to register. You are just being a proactive government, if I may put it that way, to then say that you are registering your people beforehand.
Given South Africa's digital divide and the challenges that we have with infrastructure, particularly in rural areas, how does the EFF plan to ensure that the Independent Electoral Commission, the IEC, can effectively notify and engage these 16-year-olds about their voter registration, especially in underserved communities?
I think the people we are writing this bill for are found somewhere. It's not just because they are in rural communities, they are unable to be found. And most of them, 16-year-olds, will be in schools. And IEC already has mechanism in rural areas to register our people. So all we are saying is that government must just extend its capacity and make sure that it reaches out to the people in rural communities where it's just remote areas without any technology or internet or data in those areas. But obviously, when you are establishing an online system, you always have to have mechanism for whenever you have technical glitches or you are offline in terms of how then do you process that information. So IEC will then have to embark on a very aggressive campaign in schools and everywhere else where we actually find these young people and then process their information accordingly.
There also could be unintended consequences because the bill relies on data from the National Population Register. So what measures does the EFF propose to safeguard the privacy and security of young citizens' personal information during the automatic voter registration process, and how will it address potential concerns about data misuse?
Well, government already has what you call the POPI Act, which actually speaks to exactly what you are asking me. So government will just have then to ensure that it also increases capacity to make sure that it protects the personal information of our citizens. This data that we are talking about is already in the hands of government. It's within Home Affairs in the national population data. So we are not asking a private or anyone else to then go in and take that information and put our people in the voters' roll. We're asking the very same government that is the custodian of that information. So then say they must just use that information and escalate it and put it in the voters' roll. So government is governed by the POPI Act to make sure that it protects the private information for our people. They just have to ensure that they stick to those acts and those bills that are there to protect the personal information of our people, and to make sure that that information is accessed responsibly with the necessary, sensitivity it requires.
This member's private bill also requires citizens to confirm or update their place of residence before voting. How does the EFF envision this process working in practice, particularly for young voters who may frequently change residence or live in informal settlements where addresses are harder to verify, like we've seen in Potchefstroom a couple of years ago?
Yeah, look, Elvis, I think for that it's very basic. The first primary objective for the bill is to get our people on the voters' roll. And that information obviously would be there. I mean, when the parents register their kids into the national population, there will be those addresses where we know that where do you find these people. But overall, as I was saying earlier, that these 16-year-olds are mostly found in primary education. And those high schools, most of them are actually even voting stations for the IEC. So their location is not necessarily a problem. For those that you are saying would move from here and there, is not an issue, because then IEC always opens up voter registration to come and check and update your details just before the election. So the people can actually utilize that point. But the primary thing with that, they are already on the voters' roll. Then those who move from point A to point B because of school of work or anything else, it then becomes their responsibility to then go and update their details, whether online through the various apps of IEC, or they go to the physical registration and then say, no, I've moved from my place of residence, I'm now here, I want to cast my vote here. But that is just secondary. The primary goal here is to make sure that our people are all found in the registration for the voters' roll.
This automatic registration, how does the party EFF anticipate this change will impact voter turnout and political engagement among young people?
No, this is exactly what will assist, decrease the voter empathy that is existing in the country. Because majority of the 13.5 million people who are not registered to vote are young people. And look at the institutions of higher learning as it stands. The young people are highly involved in the election processes and everything else because of this point, that the lack of communication to inform young people that they need to embark on this voter registration process then plays a role in young people not turning out to the voting stations. So we are saying that IEC must embark on this process and make sure that our people are automatically registered, and then we are actually going to be able to deal with that issue where we will see young people turning up to voting stations and be able to cast their votes.
Is your party also planning to advocate for lowering the voting age to align with the proposed registration age in the future?
Well, it's not something that we have discussed to say, should we actually go and look at 16-year-olds to vote? But obviously, it's something that once this bill has gone through and it is passed and it becomes a law of government, then those are the things that internally the organization will look into in terms of how we strategize going forward to make sure that there is more activity and a broader participation of our people into the national election.
Mr. Blows, I thank you so much for your time in joining us this morning.
Thank you.
That was EFF Member of Parliament.